flung beyond the automatic doors into the street outside. I could not adjust to the spiky protrusions of the synthetic paper form within my palm, and I discarded it temporarily into the right-hand pocket of my coat.
There was no one at the counter, so I went round the back to try and find someone who worked in the stockroom who could find the book. I'd ordered it because the blurb used to turn a phrase I'd always admired, and I was half serious about highlighting any word in the book that I felt proved the existence of an ideology I'd been playing around with for almost 2 years. It started off as a miraculous discovery, a new way of seeing, but now it was the only way I saw, the only way I wanted to see. Not many others knew about it though, so I wasn't a fanatic. I was just very interesting. The depot had a TV in the corridor outside the stockroom, and I leant as if bored against its screen, with a flat palm on the end of my stiff arm to twist my head and shoulders in for the thrill of guilt and culpability the international news would give me. Television perfectly illustrates the theory of quantum physics. I birthed this in television in my head. Those pixels everywhere in every colour being everything, being there but not being there, I reasoned. They could be everything, though they will never be real, they will never really exist outside imagination. Possibilities mean so much more than reality these days. They certainly do to me. If only he wanted to confuse me or contradict himself and smiled out of it.
Above me, the sun had made itself known momentarily, before slipping behind the burgeoning bank of cloud. I had expected the weather to be dour anyway. As I reached the monument at Perfumed Street, I examined it studiously. I can't explain how exactly, but it was as if I had visited the site of the painting I had seen since childhood, and found that it was merely the style of the brushwork that had put me off. It seemed that the positioning of the statues and shrubbery, the planning of the pathway, the curvature of the avenue ahead in fact, was so perfectly to my taste at first hand. I could not remember why I had always been so unmoved by it. At the corner of Beauregard Road, I waited for a rush of traffic to come. I released the whole receipt into a bin by the road crossing. Looking down upon the camellias, I saw that they were flagging somewhat more than they had seemed to in the supermarket. I felt suddenly inclined to rid myself of them altogether, unable to imagine waiting on any bench with such poisonous ambivalence to the item in my head, and what it was inclined to represent.
I started walking toward the bridge, very slowly. I was worrying, I remember, about whether things would turn out alright in the end. If things had already gone wrong some time up to this point. On the way I saw a cash machine but decided not to check my balance. It looked a lot like an arcade game with its fully flashing colour screen, full quantum. Where's my money? There's more money than there is money. There's more money than there is need for the whole world to be alright.
Crossing the road, I realised I would arrive early by default. I would expect poor timekeeping already, nearly 2 weeks in as a habit, and I realised then I would not look on it with the same wry romance as I had had in the house. I remembered now, in amongst the brilliant throng of lunchtime, the despondence I had felt during those sporadic sit-ups with others. Paralysed me as a feeling of utter distraction in the washy light of the club garden. It was a cold disaffection toward a glass of Diet Coke that had gone 7 o'clock. I was a terrible liar, you see, and yet with desperation I had always remained. I had forced myself drunk with the sanitary conscience.
I thought of a joke I could tell if I thought he was trying to make us get serious. I read it through in my head while my facial muscles held the tetralyzer. I knew I'd missed the chance to cross the bridge, but by this I had saved myself.
I had pursued at pulling teeth for the sake of some momentary cling, or the notion of something I had already dismissed. This that had seemed a self-deprecating and trustworthy punchline in the safety of a relationship now seemed inescapably accurate once more. I arrived alone at the bench, camellias still in hand.